Hi guys, this is Asal. I'm studying for the bar and I wanted to review my notes with you. So today we're studying theft crimes. I already made a video about larceny and I told you to go to part 2. So this is a part 2 and now we're making a video about embezzlement and theft by false pretense. So, what is embezzlement? It actually has 3 elements. The first element is the defendant has a lawful possession of another's personal property. The second element is the defendant has been entrusted with the property by its owner owing to a fiduciary relationship between them. Fiduciary relationship. Underline that. And the third one is the defendant fraudulently converts the property. Okay, so what is the difference between larceny and embezzlement? So in embezzlement, the defendant has rightful possession of the property, whereas in larceny, the defendant does not have the rightful possession of the property. Okay, and again, what is the difference between larceny and embezzlement? Dominion. Okay, in larceny, there's a minimal degree of dominion, whereas in embezzlement, the substantial degree of dominion. Okay, larceny interferes with possession. Embezzlement interferes with ownership. We got all this. So it applies to personal property only. It requires specific intent, and it covers tangible and intangible property. That is both with larceny and embezzlement. So, when the defendant intended to return the same property, there's no crime. When the defendant mistakenly thought she owned the property, again, there's no crime. Now, I want to move on real quick from embezzlement to false pretense. What is false pretense? False pretense is when someone knowingly and intentionally takes title, highlight that, takes title to another person's property by falsely representing a material, present or past fact. Okay, so takes title and of another person's personal property, actually another person's property, and by falsely representing. Okay, so we described larceny, we described embezzlement, and now we're talking about false pretense. In larceny, it interferes with what? With possession. In embezzlement, it interferes with what? Ownership. In false pretense, it interferes with what? Title. Good. And all these 3 require specific intent. Larceny applies to transfers involving personal property. Embezzlement applies to transfers involving personal property again. And false pretense applies to transfers involving real property and personal property. Okay, so false pretense, it can be made verbally with direct verbally, or it could be made through conduct. You know, he does something and he makes them believe, okay, and it's implied. Now I want to move on. All these things I talked about was the common law. Under the Model Penal Code, it does not recognize distinct offenses such as larceny, embezzlement, and false pretense. Under the Model Penal Code, there is theft, but the theft is by unlawful taking. And the defendant unlawfully takes control over movable property or unlawfully transfers movable property. Under the common law, property must be physically taken or carried away. Under the Model Penal Code, property needs to be physically, okay? It needs to be physically taken or carried away. So I can continue, you know, there's like these real big distinctions from common law to Model Penal Code. I'm going to go right till the end. Okay, I have 5 minutes, I'm going to take it. Under the common law, it applies to personal property. Under the Model Penal Code, it applies to any kind of property that has value and is movable or immovable, personal or real. Okay, under the common law, it was the permanent deprivation intended? Under the Model Penal Code, did the defendant take major portion of economic value of the property? And again, under the common law, false pretenses, and under the Model Penal Code is theft by deception. Okay, so these were the 2 differences of Model Penal Code and the common law. And there's like 2 little things I want to discuss, you know, write it down, it's very small. Advertising puffery. Okay, that is lawful. And false impressions, that is unlawful. Unlawful. And the last thing I want to describe and tell you goodbye is theft of services under the Model Penal Code. The defendant has intentionally avoids paying for services. Okay, so I just pretty much described embezzlement and a false pretense, mostly compared it with larceny, common law, Model Penal Code, and I wish you luck. Goodbye.